Donald Trump declares a trade war and Ottawa hits back. Strong words from the Prime Minister today as Trump slaps crippling tariffs on virtually all Canadian goods. And hitting America where it hurts. We'll have more on Ottawa's reciprocal tariffs and how Canadians are responding. Plus, terrifying moments on a streetcar in Toronto. A stabbing in the city's West End has left a rider seriously injured. We're live with those details this hour. And rain, lots of it, is on its way to the GTA. We'll have more on the special weather statement from Environment Canada. You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat. Welcome to Live at 5. The Prime Minister did not mince words today when he told Canadians about the impact of Donald Trump's crushing tariffs. Justin Trudeau said this is going to be tough, but he also vowed to fight back. So here we are tonight. After months of threats by the U.S. president, America has implemented 25% tariffs across the board on Canadian imports. Ottawa's response? It begins with 25% retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of American products. And this is the first phase of a two-part response. Here's more on Trudeau's message to Trump today.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But, Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see.
And Donald Trump is already punching back, promising to match Canada's retaliatory tariffs. Take a look at this Truth Social post from Donald Trump. He says, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. Now, the LCBO is removing thousands of American-made alcohol products from its shelves as part of Ontario's response to this trade war. Let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan for more on Premier Doug Ford's comments today. And Melissa, Doug Ford says we didn't start this fight, but we are ready for it.
Yeah, and that's definitely the refrain we're hearing from a lot of Canadian politicians today. Some 3,600 U.S.-made alcohol products, Lena, are being removed from LCBO store shelves. You'll remember we heard about this plan last month when we first expected those tariffs to be put in place by the U.S. Well, now that they have taken effect, Ontario is moving ahead with this. And it's not just for customers who can't walk into stores now and pick up your California Red or your U.S. whiskey. It also means for bars and restaurants, the catalog online for them to pick up alcohol. They won't be able to pick up those U.S. products either. If you go to the LCBO's website right now, you'll see it's down for maintenance as they've removed those American-made products. Ontario, by the way, one of the biggest purchasers of U.S.-made alcohol, buying nearly $1 billion worth of the stuff every single year. So just to give you an idea of the impact that it could have on some 35 states where that alcohol is made. This is just one of the steps that Ontario is taking. We heard from Ontario Premier today, Doug Ford, saying that $100 million contract with Elon Musk company Starlink, that's being ripped up. When it comes to procurement, that government contracts, they won't be going to U.S. companies. Ford also asking municipalities to do the same. A lot of them already saying that, yeah, they're going to do that. And something else we're hearing from Ford when it comes to electricity. We know that Ontario powers about 1.5 million homes and businesses in 3 states. And Ford saying that is something they could be looking at. Have a listen.
Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota, telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration falls through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well.
Now, no timeline for those moves just yet, but I should mention that just moments ago on social media, Ford posting a copy of that letter that he sent out to those U.S. politicians about that plan regarding Ontario electricity. We're also hearing from NDP leader Marit Stiles. We know that the legislature was dissolved, of course, for the snap election that was held just last week. She wants MPPs to return to Queen's Park. Have a listen.
I think it's pretty clear that in order to move forward on some of these items, and particularly, anything that we're going to do to put together a real made in Ontario, buy Ontario approach, certainly anything to support workers whose jobs are at risk is going to require a return of the legislature. And, we're ready to go. We're ready. I'm rolling up my sleeves, ready to go. And I think, Ontarians would benefit from that kind of Team Ontario, Team Canada approach.
We know, too, that when it comes to selling U.S.-made booze here in Canada, a number of provinces also doing the same as Ontario. I've been talking to customers, by the way, Lena, who've been walking in here asking them what they think about this move. And they say, you know what, it makes sense. Why not? Small price to pay. There are definitely some alternatives that they could be picking up instead, looking for some of that Ontario-made wine and locally made products. Definitely something that they've got their eye on. Back to you.
All right, Melissa Duggan reporting live for us tonight. Melissa, thanks so much. Well, these tariffs, they are here, they are real, this is happening, and CP24's Arda Zakarian is getting reaction to this trade war. She's been talking to Toronto residents. She joins us live from McCowan and Ellesmere. Arda, take it away.
Yes, we're in the Freshco right now. This is where actually I'm going to show you in just a moment, but this lovely lady just stopped. And you were saying earlier that you were shopping and you were looking to buy something specific. What was that?
Lettuce, and all the lettuce is U.S. that I found here. So unfortunately, if there are no options, what do we do, right? Like, I did try to buy and see where the products were made of and where they came from, and I chose the tomatoes that are from Canada. They were U.S. and Canada, so I chose the Canadian ones. But for some articles, probably you don't find the options.
No. And how did that make you feel when you found out the lettuce was made in USA?
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Yeah.
And why are you doing this? Shopping more Canadian things?
Well, to protect our economy, also to help our country. Like, if, we can make choices, we should, I believe. That's what I think.
Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your shopping experience here at Freshco. They've actually made it a little bit easier for you. Do you see these Canadian maple leaves? Well, that is just a sign that this item is made in Canada. This Compliments brand is the Freshco brand. Most of these things are actually made just, an hour, let's say, with traffic, maybe an hour and a half in Mississauga. So that, and usually it's the cheaper option too. But a lot of the items here, if they have the Canadian maple leaf, then that means it's made in Canada. However, they said we haven't been able to put all the labels on just yet. I did pick out some other items too. Some other things that have the label right on the product. This one says prepared in Canada. Here, this quinoa package says made with 100% Canadian quinoa. The ketchup, this is the Compliments one, 100% Canadian tomatoes. And here, this is a milk that I buy consistently for my kids. And if you look down here, this blue sign, it says Dairy Farmers of Canada, quality milk. So you know it's coming from Canadian cows. We're supporting our farmers as well. Here, this Hellmann's mayonnaise, you can see the little Canadian maple leaf right there. It says made in Canada. And the Unico, these hot peppers, also have the same symbol, made in, this one says, prepared in Canada. So there you go. This is really on top of mind for many shoppers here. Everybody who I've spoken to say they don't like these tariffs. They don't want these tariffs to be here, but they are here. And what can we do about them? Well, we can shop Canadian, and that's going to be our sword. Back to you.
Yeah, this is how you use your purchasing power to your advantage. I'm sure a lot of people will be looking for that maple leaf. Arda Zakarian on the Made in Canada campaign. Thank you so much for this, Arda. Some really interesting conversations, too. Let's take you to the nation's capital now, where a crowd gathered outside the U.S. Embassy to protest these tariffs and President Donald Trump's broader policies. Demonstrators carried signs denouncing Trump and waved Canadian flags, while some also held Ukrainian flags as a show of solidarity. They wanted to present a unified front and send the message that Canada will fight for its sovereignty.
It's really anti-Trump. Everybody is in pain right now. It is LGBTQ people. It is people who are not white male. So us women, we are also being threatened. It's absolutely horrendous. So we're protesting all of that. We're marching in solidarity with the Americans, the ones that still believe in real democracy, not autocracy.
And some protesters say they're prepared to return to the embassy every weekend until these tariffs are lifted. You're watching Live at 5. Coming up after the break, we'll take a look at the impact this trade war had on the markets today. Our coverage continues right after this. Welcome back to our special coverage of Canada's trade war with the U.S. and U.S. President Donald Trump will address Congress tonight. He is expected to talk about these tariffs. He is also expected to outline the actions he's taken during his first weeks in office and lay out his priorities for the year ahead. Tariffs, reducing the U.S. federal workforce, the Israel-Hamas war, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine have been at the forefront of his administration since Donald Trump was inaugurated on January 20th. CTV's political analyst Scott Reed says it'll be interesting to see how Trump frames the actions he's taken to the American people.
He has spoken out of both sides of his mouth. He has said on the one hand that this is necessitated because we haven't kept the border secure. He's talked about fentanyl. As the Prime Minister pointed out today, that is complete garbage. That is just simply not true. He actually makes that argument because it gives him the statutory authority to impose these tariffs. Otherwise, he'd have to go through Congress. The second argument he's made, which is, Commerce Secretary was making last night, as well as the President himself, is really he just wants to take our economy. He wants all the manufacturing that exists within Canada to relocate within America.
And U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance responded to Canada's claims that a very small fraction of fentanyl entering the U.S. comes from north of the border.
The president's going to have conversations with the Canadians. We need to see real engagement on the fentanyl issue, on the drug issue. That is fundamentally the underlying element of these tariffs, is we think the Canadians have not been serious about stopping the drug trade. Now, people will sometimes say, well, if you look at the numbers, the Mexicans send way more fentanyl into the United States than the Canadians do. The Canadians have allowed a lot of fentanyl to come into the country. It's not a defense to say more has come from Mexico, because way too much has come from Mexico, too.
And Trump's tariffs and the responses to them are also expected to increase prices for Americans. Food could be one of the areas where U.S. consumers will be hit the hardest. Mexico is America's largest supplier of fruits and vegetables, while Canada leads in exports of grain and meats. Other sectors that could be impacted include consumer electronics and appliances, as well as vehicles. How high prices rise, that will really depend on whether businesses absorb the cost of tariffs or reconfigure their supply chains to minimize their effects. Now, Mexico's president says her country will respond to the 25% tariffs imposed by the U.S. with retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods.
Hemos decidido responder con medidas arancelarias y no arancelarias.
President Claudia Sheinbaum says Mexico will announce the targeted products and other measures on Sunday. The delay suggests Mexico hopes to de-escalate the trade war set off by President Trump. Sheinbaum says she and Trump have agreed to have a call this week, most likely Thursday. Now, some 80% of Mexico's exports go to the U.S., part of more than $800 billion in trade between the countries last year. Sheinbaum argues there is no motive, nor reason, or justification that supports these tariffs coming from the White House. She also says her administration is taking on Mexico's drug cartels, including seizing more than a ton of fentanyl and dismantling 329 methamphetamine labs. And a losing day for stocks as markets on both sides of the border had a negative reaction to the imposition of these tariffs. For more on the numbers and the bigger picture, we turn to financial commentator Patty Levitt-Reid. Patty, it's great to have you on tonight and to get your insights.
Thank you.
Look, the markets obviously hate all of this volatility. That's why we're seeing the markets plunge for a second day. What were your key takeaways?
Well, the fact is, the markets hate volatility. You're absolutely right about that. When you look at the Dow, it's been off 1,300 points in 2 days. And basically, since the Trump election, all the gains in the market have been wiped out. The TSX took it on the chin, but so did Asia, so did Europe. I mean, literally around the globe, there was nowhere to hide. Unless, of course, you went into gold. Gold was up about $19, trading above $2,900 an ounce. So, yes, the markets are extremely volatile. But, Lena, can I just put out a word of caution?
Yeah.
I know there is a tendency when you get this sort of volatility, and markets are very forward looking. They will start to factor in the volatility and the tariffs, and people, the average retail investor, you, me, think, okay, I'm going to capitulate. I'm going to throw in the towel and move to the sidelines. And I caution against that because if you have a balanced perspective in terms of risk and time horizon and portfolio, you probably can weather this out. And when it feels like doing something, you probably should do nothing, because when the markets reverse course, they will do so very quickly, and you've already locked in that loss. So I'm saying think it through, act on fact, not emotion.
It's so true. You know, people really want to hit the panic button, but you say it's too early for that. Instead, everybody should just stay calm. On that note, let me talk to you about the dollar. It's obviously rattled, Patty. what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it dropped about 1/3 of a cent today. You're absolutely right about that. And here's the thing, cash is very mobile. It will go where it can get its biggest bang for the buck. So a lot of investors have moved into the US dollar. No question about it. I am hearing from, or we're all hearing, not me personally, from economists on Bay Street. And what they are telling us is that if, in fact, the 25% tariffs stay in effect, we could see our economy dip into a recession. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce says things could pull back about 2.6% in terms of GDP. That translates into about $1,900 per person. So there are many who are living very close to the margin. They're very uncomfortable. But the dollar, if the Bank of Canada responds to the economic environment, you could see maybe 3 or 4 rate cuts this year. They will be watching inflation. That could be a knock-on effect, but we could see rates cut fairly aggressively and sooner than many thought.
Okay. What does the market need to regain its stability? Is it just Donald Trump saying, hey, look, this whole thing has been called off? Is that what it needs?
Well, can I just tell you, I was just reading just 2 seconds ago that the Commerce Secretary has said, you know, we may go back and look at the original agreement. I know Canada and Mexico have been working very closely with the U.S. They say they've been making great strides. And maybe, just maybe, as soon as tomorrow, we could hear something different about these tariffs. The thing is, no one really knows for sure. We don't know what this plan is. We've not seen the details of it. Things could reverse course tomorrow, or they may not. But I think it's sort of steady as she goes. The markets never like volatility, that's for sure. They're not going to like it now. But can I tell you, Lena, I've been around long enough, unfortunately, that I've seen this many, many times. And I do think we'll get through it, but it could take some time.
Yeah, you've seen a number of recessions and crises.
Okay, yeah.
No, not trying to age you at all, Patty. Just saying you're such an expert. Come on. But your message to investors is you don't panic.
I think at this point it's steady as she goes, and we need to have more information. And for anybody watching, we are friends, and we joke like this all the time.
Yes, of
just
course.
in case people go
Yes.
after you, not me.
The lovely Patty Lovett-Reed. Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate your insights as always. Good to be with you tonight, Patty.
Thanks a lot, Lena. Chat soon.
Talk to you soon. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24. Coming up after the break, Toronto's police chief says 911 response times in the city are improving. We're going to break down those numbers coming up. Welcome back. Police are investigating a stabbing on a streetcar in the city's West End that left a man seriously injured. CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan is at the scene in the Queen and Dover Court area with the latest on this investigation. Steve, what more can you tell us about what happened here?
Well, we don't have a lot of new information, Lena, and that's obviously because the investigation is only 3 or 4 hours old. So the information that we got so far tells us that the altercation took place on the 501 streetcar here at Queen and Dovercourt. As a result of that altercation, one man was stabbed. When police arrived on scene, they located this individual. He's been transported to a hospital where he remains in a trauma unit. And the latest information we had was that the suspect fled on foot. So as of right now, the police have not said, and again, that's because it's very early in this investigation, have not said what the relationship was between the victim and the accused, or the suspect rather. Was this a random attack, or was it something as a result of an animus situation going on between these two prior to leading up to the streetcar? So none of that information is known right now. The police are canvassing along Queen Street. I did see them just a short time ago going in some of the businesses looking for video surveillance, and they are looking for witnesses as well. So if you were in the area here at around 115 Queen and Dovercourt and you saw anything that you deemed to be suspicious, give 14 Division a call, because they certainly will take your information and follow up from there. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Steve, thanks so much for this. Well, Toronto police say the service is making progress in reducing 911 response times. Police say the average time it takes officers to respond to emergency calls after being dispatched is now 12.6 minutes. That's down from 19.6 minutes last year, and a steep reduction from 2 years ago when 911 response times peaked at 26.7 minutes. Chief Myron Demkew says the decrease is due largely to the strategic deployment of new officers, and noted the rates for most types of crime are going down too.
So far in 2025, we have seen decreases in community safety indicators, including robberies, auto thefts, break-and-enters, shootings, intimate partner violence, and hate crime. However, we remain vigilant as we see that carjackings are up.
Police say the trend is expected to continue as the service hires more officers. You're watching Live at 5. Coming up after the break, we'll preview an exhibit dedicated to the Four Nations Face-Off tournament that is coming to the Hockey Hall of Fame. That story is next. An exhibit dedicated to the Four Nations Face-Off tournament is coming to the Hockey Hall of Fame. It includes game-worn equipment from the competition that pitted the best players in Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the U.S. against each other. The trophy Canada captured in its dramatic overtime win against the U.S. is also on display. Visitors can get their pictures taken with the Four Nations Cup until the end of March break.
To me, I think the trophy is unbelievable because of what they've done. The NHL and the National Hockey League Players Association got together to create this trophy. It was made right here in Toronto. It was just engraved last night, and we just got it here this morning. First time we've seen it, too, and we just got it here this morning. So it's pretty special, not only for the fans that are here, but also for the staff to see it here as well.
The exhibit officially opens on Thursday morning. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's breaking news, CP24. All eyes on this. The U.S. has launched a trade war against Canada, and Ottawa is vowing to fight back. Our coverage continues right after this. Donald Trump declares a trade war and Ottawa hits back. Strong words from the Prime Minister today as Donald Trump slaps crippling tariffs on virtually all Canadian goods. And hitting America where it hurts. We'll have more on Ottawa's reciprocal response and how Canadians are reacting. Plus, terrifying moments on a streetcar in Toronto. A stabbing in the city's West End has left a rider seriously injured. We'll tell you more. And rain, lots of it, is on its way to the GTA. We're going to have more on a special weather statement from Environment Canada. You're watching Live at 5. Live at 5, I'm Lena Latafat. The Prime Minister did not mince words today when he told Canadians about the impact of Donald Trump's crushing tariffs. Justin Trudeau says this is going to be tough, but he also vowed to fight back. So here we are tonight after months of threats by the U.S. president. America has implemented 25% tariffs across the board on Canadian imports. Ottawa's response? Well, that begins with 25% retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of American products. This is the first phase of a two-part response. The Prime Minister also warning Canadians that tough times are ahead, but says the government will be there to provide support.
I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm. From expanding EI benefits and making them more flexible to providing direct supports to businesses, we will be there as needed to help. But Canada, make no mistake, no matter how long this lasts, no matter what the cost, the federal government and other orders of government will be there for you.
And Donald Trump is already punching back, promising to match Canada's retaliatory tariffs. He writes on Truth Social, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., a reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. Now, Ontario's response to these tariffs was swift. Doug Ford saying today he is prepared for a long fight and that Donald Trump has chosen chaos. Let's go live to CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris with more on Doug Ford's response. Siobhan.
Well, Doug Ford said the goal here in the province's response is to inflict pain on the U.S. to bring the country to a point where it will engage in renegotiations of our free trade agreement. So there is a couple things on the table to begin with. First of all, the most obvious one for Ontario viewers will be the removal of American-made liquor from LCBO shelves. Bars and restaurants, they won't be able to order American-made booze either. The government's also blocking U.S. firms from bidding on Ontario contracts. And the government's also ripping up a contract with Elon Musk's firm Starlink that was to provide high-speed internet to rural and northern Ontario. Doug Ford again says that he doesn't want to do business with somebody so closely linked to Trump, somebody who wants to do damage to Ontario's economy. Ford also says that Ontario has to be prepared to escalate. Here's more of what that could look like.
Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota, telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration falls through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well.
Now, exactly what might trigger that is a little unclear. Ford says that he would be prepared to turn off the lights to more than 1 million American homes and businesses that rely on Ontario energy if tariffs persist into the month of April.
Siobhan, we heard from the opposition parties who certainly want a seat at the table as these conversations continue. They're calling on Doug Ford to recall the legislature.
They are. They say that they really believe that Ontarians and Canadians want all parties to be working together on a tariff response to deal with the immediate threat and what might come down the road and how to prevent this sort of situation down the road. Here's what we heard from opposition leader Marit Stiles.
I can't think of a bigger and more important reason for us to all come together at this moment and work together than this actually existential threat, this tariff threat to our economy. And I'd say this as well, to Mr. Trump and to all of our American friends down south. I think you're only beginning, you're not even really feeling the impact of what those tariffs, those American tariffs, are going to be felt by Americans at the gas pumps. Every time they want to build a house or go to the grocery and buy fruit and vegetables that comes from Ontario, they're going to feel the impact as well.
Now, Ford hasn't said exactly when he intends to recall the legislature after last week's election. He says, though, that he doesn't need the legislature to help out in this situation, that his cabinet is busy working on the tariff response.
One last question for you, Siobhan, before we let you go. Doug Ford has talked about taxing electricity in response to this trade war. He's also talked about potentially cutting off power supply to the U.S. Did he say how he would do that?
The actual mechanics of it, how it would work exactly, I'm not sure, but that is certainly a threat on the table. It's a little unclear right now whether Ontario would need legislation to make that happen. It is something that the government is exploring right now, and that could have something to do, or that could affect how quickly we see the government reach for that lever.
Okay, strong words from the Premier and Siobhan Morris all over that. Thank you, Siobhan. Well, part of Ontario's response, as Siobhan was talking about, is yanking American booze from LCBO shelves. And our Melissa Duggan is working on that part of this story, and she's outside an LCBO this hour. What are you hearing from shoppers, Melissa?
Well, I can tell you, Lena, they know what's going on. They know that this U.S.-made booze is being pulled off of LCBO store shelves. And this is one of those reactions that's a tangible thing. It's easy to understand. You could see that those bottles aren't on the shelf anymore. You can't buy them anymore. And that certainly is something that people are aware of at this point. It's not just customers, by the way, that won't be able to buy, that bottle of California Red they usually pick up. It's also bars. It is also restaurants. They won't be able to purchase U.S.-made booze from the LCBO's catalog. The LCBO's website down right now as they yank those items off of their website. Some 3,600 products that are made in the U.S. No longer up for sale at LCBO stores, and is going to stay that way, as we're hearing from the provincial government today, until this whole tariff matter is resolved. And it could see, a bit of a bite at a business for Americans, because Ontario happens to be one of the biggest purchasers of U.S. booze in the world. We're talking nearly $1 billion worth of it every single year. I've been talking to customers who've been walking into this LCBO store, what they think about this response. Have a listen.
I think we have to pull out all the opportunities we have to send a strong message to Washington that we're not going to tolerate being bullied.
It's a great idea. We can hit them once with tariffs on the way back. We could do export tariffs, but I think probably the best way is just stop purchasing American. Solves a lot of the problems right there.
I think we're all going to have to learn to live with an emerging recession. That's one way of making a statement.
So what happens to all of these bottles that are being packed up right now? We heard from a spokesperson from the Premier's office telling CTV News today that they're all going to be stored in a warehouse. When this issue is resolved, they could be pulled back out again. And something else to mention, too, that it's not just Ontario that is putting this step in place. Most provinces actually going to be pulling U.S.-made alcohol off of their store shelves as well. So certainly a real Canada approach to this. And as we heard from customers there, they sound pretty okay with this whole move. Back to you, Lena.
All right, Melissa Duggan, live on the Canadian sentiments tonight. Thanks so much for this, Melissa. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24. Coming up, we'll take a look at how this trade war could impact food prices. What is it going to mean at the grocery store? We'll find out. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are following the very latest when it comes to Canada's trade war with the U.S. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau telling Donald Trump this is a dumb thing to do today. And CP24's Arda Zakarian, she's getting reaction from Toronto residents to this trade war. She joins us live from inside a grocery store. What's the message to Canadians, Arda?
I've been speaking to people shopping for their groceries, and all of them really across the board have been saying the same things to me. A, they don't like the tariffs. They don't want it here. They are worried how that's going to affect their day-to-day. But B, they are looking to buy Canadian, to support Canadian, to buy things that are made in Canada, product of Canada. And that's what they're doing. They are very conscious about what they're shopping for, turning over the item that they're buying, seeing the label, where is it made, or even here at FreshCo, they've actually made it a little bit easier because they've put a Canadian flag, a red Canadian flag on the items that are made in Canada. So there's no guessing. They say they're almost finished. They still have a lot more to do in the store, but they said that they started this a week ago. So they know what the customer wants as well, and that's what they're doing. So I had a chance to speak to a few people. Here they are.
I have a strategy, Made in Canada. It's an app on Facebook, and it will tell you if you have a question, you just post it, and somebody will come on and say, no, that's not made in Canada. So I've actually been looking at the labels for years now. made in Canada. So if it's made in Canada, Mexico, I'm buying.
He's supposed to be our neighbor and friend. I mean, how bad do you have to be to have Canadians boo your anthem? You got to be pretty horrible for that to happen. We're supposed to be the nice guys.
And you see this sign? It says proudly Canadian, owned and operated here at Freshco. You know, they know them. Their customers are looking for that as well. One person told me that she knows even which gas stations are American owned versus Canadian owned, which one she's going to go to. There are a couple of apps as well to help you along with your journey if that's what you want to do. One is called Buy Beaver and the other one is called Maple Scan. So basically you turn over the barcode, you scan the item, and then it will tell you where it's made or if it's made in Canada. Back to you.
All right, Arda Zakarian on the Made in Canada campaign. Arda, thanks so much for this. Seems easy enough. And for a closer look at how this trade war could impact food prices on this side of the border for Canadian consumers, we're joined live by Sylvain Charlebois, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Sylvain, good to see you. Our reporter, Arda Zakarian, has been talking to people all over the city, all over the province today, and they're very passionate about buying local. Does that surprise you, first of all?
No, actually, we have data on this. For the month of February, sales for Canadian food products are up nationwide 3.5%. And that is a lot. 3.5% is a lot in food retail. But what is most interesting is the anti-American sentiment. So sales for American products are down almost 7%. So the anti-American sentiment right now is much stronger than the pro-Canada sentiment, and it's not a bad thing. Why? Because grocers need options. They want to know that consumers in Canada are interested in buying all sorts of goods, and Canada cannot produce everything cheaply. Sometimes things are more expensive. So by having more options for grocers, typically Canadians would have access to a more affordable food basket over time. So what's happening in Canada is really, really interesting.
That is so interesting. Fascinating, I would say. Sylvain, take us into the aisles at the grocery store if you can. Where are consumers going to feel the pain the most?
Center of the store, absolutely. With this first wave of tariffs that was announced by Prime Minister Trudeau today, center of the store, some freezer aisle products as well. Some produce, not a whole lot. The second wave is likely going to be more painful, to be honest. But for the first wave, we're not expecting a whole lot. The biggest challenge right now is the Canadian dollar. Will the Canadian dollar impact the buying power of our importers, like grocers, for example? And if that's the case, unfortunately, a lot of sections of the grocery store may be impacted as a result of this tariff rhetoric.
Sylvain, we're hearing from a lot of people who are saying their first option is going to be looking for that maple leaf. They're going to try to buy made in Canada products. But if they can't do that, then they'll buy made in Mexico products. Yep. What do you make of that strategy?
It makes sense. Makes absolute sense. And in fact, I actually think that food corridor between Mexico and Canada will get busier. Absolutely. It is close by. You just have to go through Canada, tariff-free, through the United States, tariff-free. And so it's easy. It's very accessible. And Mexico is our partner. They are part of the North American trade deal we have with the Americans. But right now, our big brother in the middle is having a tissy fit. So might as well deal with the other sibling in our relationship.
Right. We're still in this trade agreement with Mexico, so that's a good choice. Good to know.
That's right.
Are there any foods you think Canadians will just have to avoid until this trade war is over? I'm thinking oranges.
Well, oranges, yes, absolutely. We can get oranges from other places around the world, like Mexico, for example, Brazil, Africa as well. Grocers can actually get you the stuff you need, but it will likely cost more. That's the thing we're realizing in our studies, that people want to buy Canadian, they want to buy certain products, but if it's too expensive, they'll look for other options. That's what grocers need, other options from other places around the world except America. So the let's buy anything but American movement is strong, absolutely strong right now.
Yeah, people are certainly talking about that. Sylvain Charlebois, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. So good to pick your brain about this. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Take care.
And a losing day for stocks as markets on both sides of the border had a negative reaction to the imposition of Donald Trump's tariffs in New York. The Dow dropped 670 points, or just over 1.5%. Here at home, the TSX fell 430 points, or 1.7%, which was off the lows of the day. There is concern over the economic impact from tariffs, but financial commentator Patty Levitt-Reid cautions investors against any rash reactions.
The average retail investor, you, me, think, okay, I'm going to capitulate. I'm going to throw in the towel and move to the sidelines. And I caution against that, because if you have a balanced perspective in terms of risk and time horizon and portfolio, you probably can weather this out. And when it feels like doing something, you probably should do nothing, because when the markets reverse course, they will do so very quickly, and you've already locked in that loss. So I'm saying think it through, act on fact, not emotion.
And late today, U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick indicated there could be another announcement about tariffs by President Trump as soon as tomorrow.
He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening, because he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause. None of that pause stuff, but I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way, and we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome, the president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
And stay with us here on CP24 as we continue to follow the latest on day one of this trade war. For now, we'll take a quick break. You're watching Live at 5, and coming up after that break, we're going to get a live update from the scene of a stabbing on a streetcar in the city's West End. Steve Ryan is reporting live there. Welcome back. Police are investigating a stabbing on a streetcar in the city's West End that left a man seriously injured. CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan is at the scene in the Queen and Dover Court area with the very latest. Steve.
Yeah, Lena, there was some tense moments on the 501 streetcar this afternoon here on Queen Street near Dover Court, just after 1:15 this afternoon. According to Toronto Police, they responded to an altercation. When they arrived on scene, they located a male who was involved in an altercation on the streetcar itself. He had suffered a stab wound, was rushed to a hospital where he remains in serious condition, non-life-threatening but serious condition. The suspect fled, and my latest information is that the suspect has not been located as of right now. Now, it's very early on in this investigation, so there is not a lot of details, so we don't know right now whether or not this was a random attack, was the victim and the suspect known to one another, and we don't know what the motive of the attack was. All we do know is that the attack happened on the 501 streetcar. The suspect is outstanding as far as I can know, as far as I've been told, and the victim remains in hospital in serious condition. I'll send it back to you.
Terrifying moments for that rider on the streetcar and for everybody around him as well. And that man is in hospital with serious injuries tonight. Steve, thanks so much for this. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's breaking news, CP24. Coming up, we'll tell you about the first music ambassador for Canada's men's and women's national soccer teams. That story is coming up. Welcome back. Grammy Award winner Boy Wonder has been named the first music ambassador for the men's and women's national soccer teams. The producer, who's worked with the likes of Drake, Eminem, and Rihanna, will oversee the Perfect Pitch program. He'll be producing songs with Canadian artists that'll be released leading up to next year's FIFA World Cup. Proceeds will benefit the Canada Soccer Foundation. Turning to the weather, the GTA is bracing for a significant amount of rainfall. Here's what you need to know about that. Much of southern Ontario is under that special weather statement with 15 to 25 millimeters of active weather expected by tomorrow night. So get those umbrellas ready. The frozen ground isn't able to absorb all the water, meaning the rain, along with melting snow, could cause localized flooding and pooling on the roadways. We're giving you a live shot of the conditions tonight, a shot of the city skyline skyline. Clear skies, but that is about to change, so get your rain gear ready. It's 5:58. 7 degrees. You're watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24. We're going to continue to bring you all the developments in the trade war between Canada and the U.S. And U.S. President Donald Trump, he is all set to address Congress as he launches this trade war with Canada and Mexico. We've also got a lot of reaction on this side of the border. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has vowed to fight back, and he's also implemented retaliatory tariffs. Stay with us for more, and thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.